Welcome to the White Sox Recap Podcast. I am Ryan McGuffey. Well, it's been a few weeks since the White Sox 2025 season came to an end at 60 and 102. And it was kind of like two different seasons in one. First half, second half, all of the cookies and carrots came mostly in the second half. And we saw a lot of positive things happen in the final few months, capped off by the Colson-Montgomery home run barrage, a 21 home run season for the White Sox rookie sensation. We had to let some time pass, some of the news get out, the coaching changes, for instance, and some time to reflect on our season predictions because, folks, it's fun. It's laughable at times and spot on in others. And BA and I are going to go through each category and figure out where we were way off and where we were dead on. Plus, our thoughts on the White Sox moving on from Ethan Katz, Marcus Thames, and others. It's the White Sox Recap Podcast, and it starts right now. What's up, Brian Anderson? It's been a little bit, buddy. We had to let some of the time pass, as I said in the intro, with the season passing. You always know, like, you can't just hop on board 24 hours after a season ends and expect to nail everything that hey, here's what's going to happen. No, White Sox, I wouldn't say shocked, but I think there was a little bit of shock with announcing some coaching changes. But first off, my friend, season comes to an end. We're going to go through our predictions. It's good to see you. The playoffs are off and running. I have a little bit of like that angst of what October baseball is like, and we're seeing it in Chicago for the first time in years. It's fun, and boy, do I miss the energy of a White Sox playoff team.
The White Sox fans deserved a little bit of a breather, especially with baseball still going on. If we were to go and review the team and give grades and all that other stuff right when the season ended, that would be sacrilegious. It would be wronging the baseball gods. Like when you're that bad for 2 straight years and you have a combined 223 losses in 2 years, the White Sox fans deserve a break. Especially, it's like here we are grading the White Sox, like the Cubbies are still lingering, right? It's like let the dust settle. The White Sox fans know they're trash, and you know there's some positives that we'll go over, but the bottom line, buddy, man, like the White Sox were not good. Like you're not good for 2 years. It's not, and that's not going to fly.
3 years, 3 straight 100-loss seasons. That's obviously never happened before in the organization's history. I do think, you know, if we're sitting here a year ago doing this and where we are today, obviously it feels different, right? Like they're not coming off 41 and 121 with a bunch of just misfits. There's certainly a lot to look at. We've talked so much about this rookie class. You and I are going to give our final grades on the next edition of the podcast. We did it at right around the midterm, where we went and gave midterm report cards for everyone, progress reports, if you will. We do have final grades. That's coming on the next podcast. Let's touch on the coaching changes that the White Sox announced. And this was right after the season. This is the Monday, and this is why you don't jump on board and start, okay, here we go. The White Sox came through. They dumped it at 6 p.m. on a Monday, kind of like a little news dump, but they announced that they will not renew the contracts of Ethan Katz, Marcus Thames, the hitting coach, Jason Bourgeois, Drew Butera, and Grady Sizemore. Sizemore was going to be offered a role within the organization for 2026. Now, you can dip down. Sergio Santos is out in Charlotte as a AAA manager, which that surprised me as well. From what I've been told, it was I thought maybe Sergio wanted to pursue other opportunities. From what I've been told is that he did not expect that. He did not see that coming. I know he does want to manage at the major league level. And a lot of these guys that have come up through the ranks, Sergio was the one who was their manager along the way. Yeah. My speculation is, does Grady Sizemore go down now to AAA and become the manager there, since he did wear that hat, as an interim role in the brutality of 2024? Maybe. Marcus Thames doesn't surprise me. There was better offense, obviously, in the second half with a lot of these prospects. And then Ethan Katz, that's the one that did open my eyes a little bit. And there's a lot of fans out there that were like, why are you shocked by this? They weren't very good. Look at the talent. I've talked to Ethan about this. I've talked to Ethan on the podcast about this. You have as well. he did more with less than I think any White Sox pitching coach has ever done. I mean, the Eric Fetties, turning him into an all-star and flipping him. Adrian Hauser. I mean, it was all-star like, and they flipped him. Martin Perez, albeit injured a lot, but he's worth coming back. And there's Mike Vassell, Shane Smith. Davis Martin. I'm just naming, what they've done, what he did with the guys here. But I did talk to Ethan as well. I think he was surprised by the news, but from what I've gathered and doing a little research outside of just the internal White Sox, I think Ethan Katz is going to be just fine. I think he's very well respected.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
And amongst players.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we're going to start with him, it's a tough one to start with because we both like Katzy a lot. I'll just say there's times in baseball when you can't figure out the why. The why will boil down to two things. I mean, the White Sox, no matter what you say, three straight 100 seasons. But for me, since I've been back, we've been talking about it. It's 223 losses, right? And we always go back to when I played and post White Sox World Series year. I think we won 89, 90 games, and we got torched. We got torched by the media. We got torched by the fans. And they were calling for people's heads. I'm sure there's probably people telling fire Ozzie. The guy just won a World Series the year before. And so the bottom line with Katz is I think it boils down to two things. The losses, even though that's not on him, right? He was unbelievable with some of the pitchers. And it's not one of Will Venable's guys. And I think people grossly underestimate that it's not one of Will Venable's guys. Case in point, I had this conversation with Ben Greenspan when I was coaching at Northwestern, right? He was gracious enough to let me stay on for 1 year when he took over. But at the end of the day, he's a first-time manager, first-time head coach, and he deserves to have his own guys in there. And so I promise you, that was discussed with Chris Getz and the organization before Venable even took the job. He may have said, "Hey, we don't want to create too much of a shit show to start, so let's keep these guys intact. At the end of the year, if you want to make a change, make a change."
You nailed it. I think you absolutely nailed it. I think Will Venable, Chris Getz allowed Will Venable to give him a 1-year runway to say, okay, not necessarily your prove it year, but I think there's clearly so much momentum from what Will Venable, the culture that's established, the respect in the room, the players that respect Will and his career. And now I do think this is what it's about. I think, and quite frankly, it's a results-based business, to your point. And if I were in that seat, BA, and you gave me the job and it's well, here's your staff, I'd be like, I mean, okay, but my blueprint I laid out for you looks a little bit different, but I'll run with this for now. I can respect that. And take the personal out of take the relationships out of this. Ethan's got enough relationships in the game. Again, he's going to be just fine. He's got young family and stuff. He'll be okay. What I like about the moves, and then I want to move on. What I like about the moves is it's the first time the White Sox have allowed their manager to kind of okay, go bring in your guys. I mean, when they brought in Pedro, when they brought in Robin Ventura, Ricky Renteria, the Sox basically were here's your guys. You're going to have Daryl Boston and you're going to have Harold Bain. You're going to have the guys that we've pushed on you. And they've really never allowed the manager to kind of do more than that. You know what I mean? You're going to manage, but we're going to give you Don Cooper. You're going to manage, but we're going to give you Ethan Katz. And I think this is the next step in progression to be kind of like the other teams in baseball. Dude, you're the manager and here's your staff.
No doubt. There's no doubt, man. And that's a tough one for us. So I know you want to put a bow on him, but that's the toughest one for us to swallow because, like you had mentioned, there's 4 or 5 plus key examples of being man, those guys weren't just dudes. There were no guarantees, and they developed into really solid, if not great pitchers.
Okay, so we just have to work harder at creating the next relationship. That's all it is from there. Are you ready? Are you ready to do this? Because I know you didn't go back and listen to the White Sox prediction podcast, and it's going to be fun. Are you ready?
Yeah.
We're gonna tally up half points and points along the way. There's definitely a lot of zeros. Trust me. There's a lot of just flat out. I got my pen. Lot out. All right, we're gonna start our first one. Andrew Vaughn, home runs.
Hey, I know what I said. I think I said 32.
You said 32 home runs.
And how many did he end up having?
So with the White Sox, he had 5 home runs. But
I said if he ggets traded, we get to count him on the other team he goes to.
he had 14 home runs this year.
So I was half off.
And postseason home runs don't count. I know he had a big one against the Cubs. Postseason home runs do not count. He had 14 home runs and 65 RBIs. So you're off, my friend. 32. Okay. You said 32. I said the White Sox team leader in home runs would have 22, and that would be Andrew Vaughn. The White Sox team leader did have 22 home runs. It was Lenyn Sosa. No one saw that coming. I guess the question I asked, I don't feel terrible about my 22. You're 32. You had Andrew Vaughn going to the moon. Am I getting a half point for 22 home runs? If the team
you got it. I'm going to give you that one. But with Andrew Vaughn, I think we can agree that prediction-wise, we both weren't too far off. Considering, look at what he did when he left.
Well, hang on. Let's just jump to this one. I'm going to jump around because one of our predictions also was give me Andrew Vaughn's stat line. I'm not looking for like the kudos here because you're going to laugh at some of my predictions.
Yeah,
we're going to go to the Andrew Vaughn stat line. Andrew Vaughn's stat line with the White Sox was 189, 218, 314, 5 homers, 19 RBIs. Just absolutely awful. You predicted, this was your prediction, Andrew Vaughn, 270. Now he went to the Brewers and was a 308, 375, 493. So you got to put all of it in consideration here. You said that Andrew Vaughn would be 275 with 32 bombs, 90 RBIs, 25 doubles, and 2 triples.
Golly.
So that was your stat line. I said this is what Andrew Vaughn's stat line would be. I said career, he's a 253, 310, 415 guy. So my stat line for him was 253, 310, 415.
Crazy.
When you put the Brewers stats in there, this is what I said 253, 310, 415. He was 254, 307, 411. I mean, literally almost to the time.
You get all the points for that.
So that's it. So at the end of the day, though, like, yes, we both did a podcast at the time. We fully supported the trade. There were Sox fans pissed for 2 months. I don't think this has anything to do with the White Sox anymore. Andrew Vaughn needed to get out of here, needed to change the scenery. It was the right move. He did a little bit of this with Milwaukee, but I think he's gone there and found an organization that has a way and that he just needs to fit in and doesn't need to be number 3 pick, Golden Spikes winner Andrew Vaughn.
No, but Andrew Vaughn, I mean, my gosh, that did not help Marcus Thames' cause. I don't want to have to jump back into the coaching staff, but I think, again, when a guy leaves like that and gets that breath of fresh air and starts to change the scenery and starts to like really go off. And again, I didn't track him for the rest of the season, but I remember vividly you and I being like sending each other notes, like, look at what this guy's doing. And you would have posts where people would be like, Andrew freaking Vaughn, I mean, he was on some sort of tear for a few weeks to where it was like, what did we just do?
Yeah, they had won like 15 in a row. I think he got there right when they started winning 15 in a row. So people were like, look where they are with Andrew Vaughn. It was kind of like circumstance at some points. He did have a lot of big hits. He had a big hit in game 2 of the playoffs against the Cubs. All right, it's time to give you some love here. Who will lead the Chicago White Sox in wins from a pitching staff? I said, this is a quote, I badly want to pick Shane Smith here. I badly want to pick the guy that we know nothing about. That's the exact quote I said. But I'm going to give you a guy from the bullpen that's made a lot of starts, and that guy's name was Bryce Wilson. Bryce Wilson played 20 games for the Sox. He had 0 wins before being let go and DFA'd, and that was a fat 0. You said there was a guy on the staff that you liked over a couple of years, hadn't had a ton of experience, but from what we saw, you thought he was going to develop into a good pitcher. And that guy's name was Davis Martin with 9 wins. He led the White Sox, him and Shane Smith. We both would have gotten a point here if I would have just gone with my gut. Davis Martin, 7 wins. And I think, and I'm circling, that's a full point for you, not a half point.
I appreciate it.
That's a full point for BA. Davis Martin, there's two guys. This is what I said about the rotation that I learned in 2025. I think you have two starters for sure going forward. I do. Two, and it's Shane Smith, who I think has earned the right to be your opening day starter next year, and Davis Martin. I think on a really good team, Davis is like a stud number, like a really solid number 4.
Sure.
But Davis Martin, especially down the stretch, was a model of consistency, a lot of quality starts, and I think going forward that you can count on those two guys. I think Jonathan Cannon personally is probably suited for the bullpen down the line. Sean Burke needs to stop walking people. So, and you got young guys coming, and then Martin Perez, the question mark with him will be, will they work something out to bring him back? But Davis Martin, my friend, team leader in wins with 7.
I'll take that one. And I like him. I like him in the future too, man. There's something to be said in the major leagues. And I realize this as a player early is like, if you can give your team a chance and you can eat up innings, you have an opportunity to be a 4 and 5 starter. But you just got it. You can't walk guys. You got to stay healthy. You could, if you check those intangibles, those boxes, you don't have to be great, but if you can rack up 8 to 10 wins in that 4 or 5 spot, you're serviceable.
Yeah, and I talked to him earlier this year. It was a podcast with him. He's just a really good dude. He's kind of been through a lot. He had TJ. He's just got a lot of perspective for a guy who's just kind of hitting the best part of his career. Who will lead the team in saves? Oh, baby.
Oh, man.
Oh, babe. Do you remember by any chance who you picked?
I don't even want to know, but I could tell you this much. I think we're way off. Both of us are way off.
You picked Mike Clevenger. You said he would have he would have mid-teens saves. Mike Clevenger had a very short stint here with the White Sox. I hope the Mike Clevenger experience in Chicago is officially gone. Like, there's no reason anymore to employ him. I think he had a 7.94 ERA. It did not work out. He had 0 saves. I went off the reservation and picked a guy that never even made the big leagues this year, Peyton Pillette. That was my guy to have the most saves. Now, he did get a lot of saves down in the minor leagues. I can't carry those over to the major leagues, my friend. That is not going to work. He had, just to be clear, I feel like my pick, I guess I'm trying to give myself kudos here. When you're picking a guy who wasn't even on the damn roster, and on this team with 102, he had 11 saves this year in the minor leagues. With 102 losses, he didn't make. That's a fat 0. Can you name the White Sox leader in saves this year by chance?
Oh my gosh! I the more I started thinking about it, I'm going. Did some of these like starters / bullpen guys come in for a 2-inning save, or just was like the pitcher that had the most innings that game because they were staggering? I have 0 clue.
Yeah, I mean that's a good thought process, and I think that probably makes up some of the reasons why we pick some of these guys. The answer is Jordan Leisure with 7.
There's no chance I'd have known that.
He racked up the bulk of those like down the stretch. So Jordan Leisure. Last year it was Michael Kopech with 9, and he was traded at the deadline. This year it's Jordan Leisure with 7. Hey Chris, I'm looking at you right here, my friend.
Boom.
It's time to go out and sign a closer, not somebody for 4 years for $60 million. I need a 1 for 10 guy. I need a guy that we can put in the 9th inning and that you can give to Will Venable and say, this guy has 100 career saves. The 9th inning is his, and work backwards from there. Because there's too many games the White Sox are giving away because they don't have experience in the back end of the bullpen. So I'm not pleading. I'm not begging. I'm just asking nicely. And if it gets to the winter meetings and we're still talking about this, I might be begging and pounding the table a little harder. Go get a closer, please. Please. 16 saves in 2 years for your saves leader is not going to cut it. I'll give you a name. Like, how the hell did Kenley Jansen close games for the LA Angels who were garbage? Okay? That guy was out there for $10 million and he just kept doing what he's done his entire career. Somebody like that, just give him $10 million and give me a veteran that's at the back end of your bullpen. Back to our originally scheduled.
Welcome back. Ryan McGuffey, ladies and gentlemen. While we're on our 20-second TV timeout, a friend of mine just messaged me and said, he's like, "You want to go to the Cubs game with me tonight? Like, what do I do?" I mean, nicely say, absolutely not.
How do I nicely tell somebody to F off?
Yeah. No,
15, just to put a bow on that, I like to put a bow on everything. 15 and 36 in 1-run games this year. 15 and 36.
That is nuts. I got to write that down. That's tough to do. I mean, you could be bad, but I mean, to be doubled up on the back end and have double the amount of losses, that's really bad. And that's going to be the focal point, as it should be, but that's going to be the focal point of what you just said and what Chris Katz is going to preach to the media too, is like, guys, we're 15th and 36 in one-run games. If we clean that up even half, we're somewhere in second or third place in the division, right? If they catch a hot streak, not after the All-Star break. So that's tough to deal with. Can't win the division at 15 and 36 in one-run games.
I mean, if they think about the idea of even making that 500, what is that, a 21? So it's 10 more wins. I mean, you're at 70. So
how are 30-year games, realistically, 30-year games, one-run games? I would love to know.
Well, that tells you that they're competitive. That tells you that they're competitive.
Yeah.
I mean, it tells you that they gave a lot of games away. Let's go to this one. One of our favorite topics in the offseason that I'm so done discussing, and I hope we can just move. Will Luis Robert be traded? So you said you kind of gave an answer for both. You weren't definitive. You said yes. I think the answer that I wrote down that I had to go with was yes, he will be at the deadline, but if he's 80 games of hot garbage and he's his old self, the answer will be no. But I think at the end of the day, yes, he will be dealt at the deadline. So it's kind of, and I think it was a fair answer because, to be honest with you, we've been confused about Luis Robert for 5+ years. I said absolutely that I gave a date and said June 26th that someone's going to jump the market and that White Sox fans in the beginning of the year should be rooting harder for Luis Robert than they've ever had before. Well, we're still sitting here on October 9th as we tape this, and Luis Robert, whose option hasn't officially been picked up yet, but will be because Chris has already guaranteed he'll be the center fielder in 2026. Luis Robert is still a part of this baseball team. That's a fat zero for both of us. We got it wrong. Luis Robert, I'm exhausted with it, but Luis Robert is still a Chicago White Sox, BA.
Sure, and don't ever forget, for the fans, for ourselves, just so we have some more ammo on this podcast, like, the best time to trade him was last year. It was during spring training. It'll be the best time to trade him next year if they decide to do it too. But if we all forget one thing, like Luis, again, I'm talking to you, like you have an opportunity to be an unbelievable player, man, like top 5 in the league, but you got to change. You got to change your makeup, and it's tough to do, but you can't trade someone when they're terrible to start the year. And it kills me to say this, but we live in an era now where you give $20 million to someone to try their hardest the next year, please. And that's the big please at the end of it, which is just insane to me.
And so, in fairness to Getz and company, you just said what I think is the reason why he's still here. He's an affordable. Who are you going to sign at center field? And I'm telling you, like, look at the list that can play when healthy. Take the offensive game out of it because he's just so confusing. But defensively, he's basically being paid because from a boom or bust standpoint, the boom is still it's too
there's too much potential, man. Like the potential. If he goes 250 with 30 next year, they're gonna be like, see, that was a bargain, and it is. But I just based off what I've seen and the way I was raised to play the game, and just the type, the body language, the makeup, and all that. I throw AAA guy that played well in spring training out there. Anybody else, I piece it together in center field and instead of giving someone $20 million.
Yeah, I will say this, and this will be his last year on the South Side. I really believe that, especially with what's looming in 2027. So, whatever, Luis Robert, whatever you give at this point, I expect to see.
I'll never not root for the guy, but I'm just so tired of it being like, well, he'll try harder next year. But no.
I'm exhausted with Luis Robert. I'm not going to not root for him, but I'm exhausted by him.
Yeah.
So, and he still reminds me of what I'm trying to get rid of. You know, I go to therapy because of the first rebuild. Let's do this one. Combined innings pitched at the major league level for Hagen Smith and Noah Schultz.
So should we just right here, move on?
Yeah, that's why I brought. You had 30 innings as September call-ups. Hagen Smith went months without pitching, and then he's going to go to the Arizona Fall League. Noah Schultz has a knee issue, so he's not going to pitch. And look, at the end of the day, neither one of them came up, so we move on. You had 30, which I think is a reasonable number. I was surprised because I expected to hear something from me in the 30s. I had 72.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think we both agreed that I think there was probably some dabbling on the making some appearances in some garbage games, but I thought we all agreed too that there might be some spot starts there in September because we were not going to be in the hunt.
Yeah, and I tried to do a little preseason research on that one. I think there was some expectation that those guys would be throwing some innings at the major league level, so I'll give that. But I should not get, but let's just move on from that one. How about let's do this one too. White Sox All-Star. The All-Star was Shane Smith, and what I thought was one of the better stories in Major League Baseball this year that no one will talk about, because Shane Smith, at the end of the day, as he trended towards the All-Star game and he had like 3 straight rough starts, it was like, oh boy. And then the way he finished, I thought, was way more impressive than the way he started, because he really settled into being that guy every 5th day that was your stopper. It didn't matter if it was at Yankee Stadium that dude was shoving, and I thought put an absolutely fantastic exclamation point to an incredible rookie season and story. Deserved to be the All-Star, no doubt about it. Andrew Vaughn, of course, by default was your answer.
I was just like, I wonder who I picked. I'm like, how did I not pick Andrew Vaughn? I had him hitting 30 jacks with 100 ribbies.
Yeah, and that's how we said it in the podcast. It was like, well, by default, by my answer, I had to be Andrew Vaughn. Well, I went with Martin Perez. I think the reasoning was there. It's like, well, he's the one veteran on this staff. So I went with a pitcher. Martin Perez was injured early. I give him a lot of credit for working himself back, because when he went to the 60-day IL initially, I said, this guy's season is over. He came back. He wants to be back. He has an option for, I think, $10 million, like a mutual. I wouldn't be surprised to see a buyout kind of rebuy at a lower rate. It makes a lot of
sense. 2 for 15 would be nice.
It makes a lot of sense for another 1 year, maybe plus option in 27 if he wants to be back. I think Martin Perez is a good mentor for a younger staff.
Getzy would shut you up with. He'd be like, see, Guff, I told you, here's your 1 year for 10. You're like, no, a closer and a back-end bullpen guy.
Oh, God, please. I don't. So, yeah, there's our fat 0 for both of us and points earned there. Let's do this one. Colson Montgomery's debut. Obviously, Colson, 21 homers in a very short time frame. He came up on July 4th, which was later than I think both of us anticipated. And I'll give you what we said here in a second. But before we get into when will he make his debut, just your overall impression of Colson Montgomery, because there was the deflation of the news that they were going to send him to AAA late in spring training. We found that out. We thought he was going to break camp. Then they basically shipped him out completely to Arizona to do a mental reset. And we've talked about this on earlier editions. I've never heard of that before. I've never seen that before. And for him to come back after tinkering with his swing in season, to go back to Charlotte, to work his way up to Chicago, and then have the type of season that he had. His batting average was low and stuff, but he was an 840 OPS guy, led the team in OPS plus with 130. The future certainly seems bright. Like I said, you needed to know a lot about these young guys at the end of the 2025 season. I think we know that Colson Montgomery, dude, is a 30 home run type player for the Chicago White Sox.
No, I mean, what's crazy about him too, and again, I don't think the jury's out per se on him. He's gonna be the starting shortstop next year. But we've spoke many a time. This game, this field, this city, this team is a lot different. Opening day, end of March, early April, and so the big challenges for him moving forward are simply going to be, man, when you break camp, man, like you got to be able to get hot, and it's going to be a ton of pressure on you at the beginning of the year because the expectation's high. Hey, until you're 10 and 40, the expectation is going to be really high. But I hope he can get off to a good start. The big challenge I think he's going to have to overcome next year is that you're not going to get to go to Arizona and get shipped away when you go to Chicago. They might send you down, which I hope they don't, but there's going to be no like, hey, hang back, and we're going to go on an 8-day road trip. You hang back and work on your swing. Like, you're the starting shortstop for the Chicago White Sox. So if you have a slump, you're going to have to figure out how to get out of that. So I hope that when he does slump next year, like all young players do, It's just small dips, big peaks, small valleys.
I'm glad you said that too, because like there's definitely like Colton Montgomery could come up in April and have a tough April, and people are gonna like it's going to be okay. I mean, he had those stretches. He had He had a stretch of 4 straight games with a homer, 3 straight games with a homer, 5 home runs in 7 games. 3 home runs in 4 games. I mean, he had a lot of those type of deals, and he's going to have stretches where he goes, 0 for 14. I mean, I'm looking at a stretch here where he had right before the end of the year where he had a couple more bombs to end the season. He had an 8-game stretch where he hit 172 with a slug of 172 as well, because he didn't homer and he had no RBIs. Those are going to happen. It's ebbs and flows of a young player. You had Quick. He'll be here quick mid-April. So I kind of had him as like your Chase Mydrop timeline. You said it'll be quick, that there's not going to be a lot of patience, and he's going to start hot. I actually gave a date and was looking at the calendar. I said it would be June 2nd on a homestand and on a nice little soft landing spot. I was just almost to the day a month off. I'm not going to get a half point for that, and that's okay. They did soft launch him or give him a soft landing spot. Do you remember who he debuted against?
Shoot, yeah, I'm going to drop a Tampa Bay Rays.
As soft as you can possibly launch, the Colorado Rockies in Colorado.
Oh, man. That's right.
It was in
Colorado too. It was in Colorado. I remember
it was in Colorado, and it was a game where he homered and Kyle Teal, and it was kind of like, okay, here we go. It was fun to see.
I know you're all jazzed up.
So right now, as we head into our final 2 categories, I think it stands 1.5 to 1.
We're not even trying.
1.5 to 1. However,
we host this podcast next year.
Well, there was a couple of years where on the other side of town where Chuck and I think had a flat 0. Here's going to be one where it changes the scoreboard. Who wins the American League Central? The Cleveland Guardians, in a historic fashion, chased down the Detroit Tigers. Literally one of the worst collapses for a division in the history of baseball. Thankfully for the Detroit Tigers, the wild card exists, and they ended up getting the last laugh because they were able to bounce the Guardians in the wild card round. And as we tape this now, we're sending Tarek Skubal to Game 5 in Seattle. Neither of us picked the Tigers, ironically, and they did not win the AL Central. I had the audacity to take the Kansas City flipping Royals. I don't know what the hell. I don't know how drunk I was when we recorded the first podcast. I took the Kansas City Royals. Brian Anderson took the Cleveland Guardians and was correct. So the Cleveland Guardians is a correct answer, and that is now a flat 2 to 1.5 as we approach. There are 2 more categories. I thought there were two. There were 3 final categories. There are 2 final categories. The category was, it'll be better, right? That was the category. It'll be better.
Most arbitrary question ever.
However, how you answered it, though, was key. You said, quote, no doubt, it'll be better, and it'll be really fun to watch the younger guys at the end of the year. That's a point. That's 100% a full point because it was fun, and that's a full point for Brian Anderson. I said, Will Venable is a reason. Accountability matters. This is you want to talk about a sentence that puts a bow on this? It'll hurt in the immediate, but embrace the summer months because the carrots and cookies are coming.
Dude, that's t-shirt. That's t-shirt worthy right there.
So we both end up getting a point for that because you were right. It was fun to watch the younger guys, and it did hurt in the immediate. The White Sox were 5-21 in April. We did podcasts that were titled, Is the offense worse than in 2024? Is this team they're spiraling? Can they make it stop? Those podcasts feel like eons ago because of how they played in the second half, where they had a run differential of just -4, by the way, in the second half. So it did get better. But as you mentioned in that answer to the podcast, you said we have a pretty damn low bar here, is what you said.
It's bad. I mean, that's hey. I know we're going to touch on that in the podcast to come, but that's why people get shit canned is because people can only take bad for so long till heads roll, and heads, they rolled all right.
All right, and finally, the 2025 record. Now, we alluded this. Everyone who listens to our podcast should probably know that what our records were, because we mentioned it down the stretch. I had 53 and 109 and felt like that was pretty damn reasonable with a new manager, that they would be better. I think my expectations for the younger guys were lower than they showed, and I looked at that opening day roster and just was like, God, this is, Jacob Amaya, and it was full of a bunch of ugh. And so I think I hung my horse to that. And for a while, they were right there at the 53 win pace for quite some time. And then they got hot in the second half, and they were a lot of fun. And they finished 60 and 102. And you said 63 and 99. And you said not that you're going to make that a goal in the clubhouse in spring training, but with a bunch of young guys, 100 losses, and showing where you want this team to go after a historic finish the year before, that could be something tangible they hung on to. And I can say, quite frankly, being in that clubhouse, and you were around a lot doing CHSN stuff, they actually were looking at that 63 wins as a tangible goal. That was a goal that was not being talked about publicly, but certainly internally. They really were trying to get to that 63 win mark. I'm giving you a full point for this. I'm giving you a full-fledged point. You're within 3 games, 60 and 102, 63 and 99 was your official guess. Brian Anderson, I think I owe you lunch, dude. You took down our first edition ever of the White Sox Season Predictions podcast.
But can we say, not to get greedy here, but I was talking about your all-time collapses with 10 games left. The White Sox had to go, or 12 games. They had to go 7 and 5 or something moderate.
There was a stretch. I think they had to go. It was actually under 500. I think off the top of my head,
that's what was. They had to go 4 and 6 or whatever the case may be.
It was 6 and 7 down the stretch.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, it was right around there. You had to play 500 baseball. You get to 63 wins, and they just went, and then they snuck a cup win at the end.
Keep in mind, this is why I never I thought when you had the Twins and stuff at the beginning, and they had that big 4-game sweep. They started September. They won 5 in a row. They swept the Twins in 4 for the first time ever, which was incredible. Then they took 2 out of 3 from Detroit, and I was like, oh my God, they can do this. Then they took 2 out of 3 from Tampa. It was that Cleveland Guardians series where they got swept and they scored 3 runs in 3 games. That changed everything. Then they came home and were swept by the Orioles. They were swept by the Orioles. Then they lost 2 of 3 to the Padres. Then they were swept by the Yankees. And they took 2. So the sweeps by the Guardians and Orioles, that's where it all went wrong. And by the way, and you do get the full point there. By the way, I mentioned 15 and 36 and 1-run games. They had 0 wins in Cleveland and in Kansas City. And if you want to take the next step from truly like being competitive in your own division, you got to be better. You got to beat your division. You got to win you got to win those one-run games. Those are the two things. You want to play. You want to be the Cincinnati Reds next year and get into the playoffs at 84 and 78. You want to be the Reds. You got to be better in your division, and you got to clean up the one-run games, and that will happen.
No doubt. I mean, that's mind-blowing. Like, I think that if we were to sit back and say, what's one team that you were like, oh, man, they made the playoffs? It was Cincinnati. I remember looking at that. I'm like, wait a minute. They played the Dodgers? Like they snuck in there? That's one team. But then look at, you got a Terry Francona, man. Don't ever rule that guy out.
Exactly. And back to like where I was talking about internally, you were 2-11 this year against Cleveland, 2-11 against Kansas City, 3-10. You were 5-21 against the Royals and Guardians, 16 games under 500 against 2 teams in your division. And then you add Detroit to that, and you were 5-8. Okay. So you're 5-8. I can deal with when you're talking about that team and you're 8-5 against the Twins. So you're 500 against 2 teams, but you're 16 under against the other 2. If you just improved that, Mark, where you were 13-13, think about that. If you were 500 in your division, you're at 68 wins. If you can get to those 501 run games, You're at 78 wins. And now you are flirting with the third wildcard spot for a long time, and you probably fizzle out in August and September. I'm asking you to go 500 in the division and 500 in one-run games. Anything better, you are a wildcard team. And you don't have to spend. I do think the White Sox, and this is going to be a future podcast, the White Sox are going to spend some money. And if they allocate it right on the right people, you can clean up those two things in division and in one-run games. And if you can bridge that gap, you might have a shot to be the Cincinnati Reds. You need more starting pitching, though.
Hey, man, shore up some of those one-run games, flip that number, or even just go 500 one-run games. But you got to have a Kenley Jansen. You got to have someone at the end of the bullpen that can say, "Guys, I got this."
Yep, 100%. So BA, I think I owe you what? What did we say? A brand new house, a new car.
We got a David Kaplan special over at that breakfast spot.
Oh yeah, espresso. The take that. The David Kaplan. That's yeah. You have earned it, my friend. I owe you lunch. I owe you lunch publicly. You beat me, but I'll be honest with you. You got four right. It's not bad.
No,
right.
I deserve to have some points taken off for a couple of those predictions.
I had 72 innings pitched for two guys that didn't make the major leagues, and I picked a closer that never made the major leagues. So, and I had Bryce Wilson leading the team in wins.
You're allowed to make bold predictions with the White Sox. That is allowed to happen.
Can I officially do two things? Have I pulled you over to the pause on your love for Luis Robert?
My God, I've never disliked the guy, but when I see a guy not hustle and I see a guy that's injured all the time and I see a guy that doesn't perform, and then on top of that they say just try harder one more time and they get 20 million, I get a little salty about that. And
then finally, your irrational love for Andrew Vaughn is fine. I'm just allowing you to. I'll buy you an Andrew Vaughn Brewers jersey as a gift for winning this podcast. How about that?
That's fine. The T-shirt will suffice.
The T-shirt. Oh, jersey tee. The jersey tee. Yeah. All right. BA, it was fun to recap some miserable picks and some, quite frankly, dead on. That was great.
I loved it.
As the White Sox name their coaching staff to replace Ethan Katz and Marcus Thames, etc., stay tuned right here for future episodes of the White Sox Recap Podcast. Make sure if you're not subscribing already that you subscribe to the recap. Click the notification bell so every time we drop a new podcast, you get the notification. And now we have a membership platform. You can become a member of the recap. You'll get inside exclusive members only content from me, from BA, from others as we build our membership platform here on the channel. As we mentioned, next week we will grade the rookie class, give them final grades. I think BA might be a little tougher as a professor at the end of this. We'll take a peek at that next week on the podcast. For Brian Anderson, I'm Ryan McGuffey. By the way, one last thing for you. Are you a snorer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you need to check out our friends at sinusandsnoringmd.com. They're great sponsors of the recap and the White Sox Recap Podcast. They have multiple locations throughout, even up into Kenosha. They have pop-up shops in Elgin. Cap went to them because Mindy was like, Cap, you're killing me with the snoring. You're waking me up every night. You got to check out our friends at sinusandsnoringmd.com. because they can fix that. Cap, of all people, is not a snorer anymore. He dozes off like nobody I've ever seen. And half the time I'm like, squirrel, mouse, what? He's so quiet because he went to sinusandsnoringmd.com. If you have issues with snoring, if your partner's waking you up at night, check out sinusandsnoringmd.com because they can fix this for you. No more issues. If the Cat Man can do it, you can do it too. Sinus and Snoring MD. I'm trying to get BA, maybe as a free consult here for winning the White Sox prediction podcast. You, my friend, should check out sinusandsnoringmd.com. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Chicago White Sox Recap Podcast here on the Recap platform, wherever you listen to audio form podcasts, and every single time right here on YouTube. For BA, I'm Guff. We'll be with you next time on the White Sox Recap Podcast.